No, Tigertail isn't a bonus episode to the wildly popular Tiger King. We follow the life of Grover, that's his American name, from his childhood in Taiwan to becoming an older man in the United States. We get to see him become a factory worker. We get to see just his family relationships. We get to see his loves, his losses, and then just we really focus, the crux of the film focuses on him later in life as he goes on this personal journey of self-discovery. Tzi Ma plays the older version of Grover, and he's wonderful to watch. He's quiet, he's reserved, and just his role, because there's not a ton of dialogue all the time, requires him to emote and to convey a lot of just everything that he's feeling, the emotions, the thoughts, the weight, the anger, whatever that happens to be, through his body language, through his facial expressions, and he does it really well. Most of the story is told in flashbacks, and we get to see Grover as a young man. And then we get to see also all of those relationships and just what makes him tick. And you see how that sets up for him later in life and how that affects his future relationships, everything that goes on, his dreams, his attainment of these, or at least his pursuit, is really what is the crux of how he behaves later in life and how that affects everybody that he comes in contact with, and even just himself, how he holds himself as a person and how he interacts and how he sees the world. There's one point in this film where the dialogue seems very amateurish, and I don't know if that was writing or editing or directing, that it didn't click. Now, I understand what they were trying to get across, and it does come across. It's some of the awkwardness, the tension between these estranged father and daughter, where they have a very strained relationship. And so that part of it comes through, but the way it was delivered just didn't feel like that's exactly how it was planned. And the reason I say that too is because later in the film, we still see some strained relationships like that, and we see trying to progress or trying to have conversations, and it's less awkward. It's still very strained. The emotion of that and the weight of that still comes through, and you just feel very awkward that they're not getting along, or they don't see eye to eye, or that they just don't know how to connect and communicate. All of that does translate to the screen, but it feels more natural. The scenery in this movie is beautiful, and the framing of the shots is outstanding as well. I mean, it just makes the entire thing visually interesting to look at. I loved watching just the scenes in Taiwan. Some of it is out in fields, and it's just wide and expansive, and you get to feel just the smallness of people compared to the size of the land in the area, and I loved that. But then we also get up close and we get personal, and we get to see just the creases in somebody's face and the emotion that they're carrying in their words or their lack of words as they sit and as they just eat a simple bowl of soup. We get to really understand how they're feeling, and it comes across every time because of the way that it's shot, the way that they choose to place the actors, with even the lighting and the lack of lighting sometimes, which I think is really good too. The darkness and the shadow, and then some just use of colored light, really transforms the mood into just, I mean, it puts us there. It makes you feel what you're supposed to feel. This is a pretty quick watch. It's 91 minutes. It doesn't feel too rushed, but it also doesn't feel slow or boring either. I mean, it is patient, and it does take its time in telling certain things, especially when there's not dialogue, where we just see action and we just see somebody sitting for a little bit, and you have some music playing, and so we get just that emotion and that weight of the character. But with that short watch time, I do wish that we would have gotten maybe a little bit more insight and development into a couple of the relationships. That I feel that we scratch the surface, we understand some of the feelings that are going on, and it's not like it was totally lost, because by the end of the movie, you understand, you feel what you're supposed to feel, you get to experience the climax and the resolution. But I just wish that they would have spent a little bit more time so that we could really find out more of what is making these two people tick, and tick together or tick out of sync with each other. And then also, just because it examines a lot of familial relationships, what are some of those other ones? We hear some and we see a little bit, but we don't know exactly what it is. And I think had they tacked on another 15 minutes or 20 minutes, that you could have really gone into depth a lot more on certain of these characters, and especially the relationships, it would have made it just that much more rich. The younger version of Grover is played by Hong Chi Lee. And this guy's great. I mean, you get to feel the zest of youth and also the dream and the discontentedness of just stasis of where he's at. He has a dream, he has goals, he wants to pursue it, but he also has all of those responsibilities that he's tied to and that he feels the weight of. And all of this plays into making him who he is and later who he becomes. And so him as an actor, especially in the young part of playing Grover, I mean, it was awesome to watch, and you really get to, you feel for him and you connect with him because he seems legit and he feels very convincing. And that convincingness also helps in just the overall personal journey of Grover, that the whole thing feels real. I mean, it feels like I believe it, because I get to watch him struggle. I get to see him as a young man go through these different things, progress, move through his life, not only struggle, but see some success as well, but also make sacrifices too, not only just for financially, but also in his own goals or his own dreams. And so you see what that does, and the ramifications then come out as an older adult. And I like just as the older adult, Grover, he's now in this discovery, and we get to watch him connect some of the dots and have some realizations. And especially as certain things come to light and play out in his personal life, it helps bring him just more grounded. It helps him refocus and look internally and examine some things that maybe he just hadn't looked at before. And we get to go along that journey. And so it makes it a lot of fun to see that, especially because we get to watch the growth. And that helps with the climax. That helps with the resolution of the entire story as well. Overall, this is beautifully filmed. It's an interesting story, and the acting is really good, save for that one little brief awkward part, which I'm going to chalk up more to either editing or the direction that the actors were given versus their actual skill, because as we see later on in the film, that's not an issue, and that awkwardness and just the stiltedness of their dialogue isn't present, even though the same emotion is coming through. There's no sex or nudity, there's a little profanity, and no violence. I give Tigertail 4 out of 5 couches. What are some films that chronicle a journey of self-discovery? If you have a good one, let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.